The sun, a relentless eye in the vast, unforgiving sky, beat down upon the ancient earth of the African continent. Cracks snaked across the dry, baked ground like 1,000 broken capillaries, testament to a thirst that had gone unquenched for far too long. A shimmering haze distorted the horizon, blurring the skeletal trees and distant withered bushes into a mirage of despair. For miles, there was no sign of water, no promise of life-giving moisture. In this stark, brutal landscape, a solitary creature moved with an unnerving slowness. It was a leopard, magnificent even in its suffering, its once sleek, spotted coat now dull and matted against its gaunt frame. Each step was an effort, a deliberate placement of heavy paws that barely stirred the dust. Its flanks were hollowed, its muscles wasted, and its powerful tail, usually held with such predatory grace, now dragged listlessly behind it. The magnificent predator, ruler of its domain, was reduced to a shadow of its former self, its bright, intelligent eyes clouded with an exhaustion that went soul-deep. It was searching, driven by instinct and a desperate burning need, but the land offered only dust and the silent, mocking shimmer of heat. This was not merely a dry spell. This was a drought, a cataclysmic event that was systematically stripping the life from everything it touched. Miles away, nestled precariously between a sparse acacia forest and a cluster of low, rocky hills, was a small, remote village. Here lived Sarah, an American conservationist whose commitment to the wild heart of Africa ran deeper than the parched riverbeds surrounding the community. With a spirit as resilient as the baobab trees that dotted the landscape, Sarah had dedicated years of her life to wildlife preservation and community support in this challenging region. Her small, dusty tent served as both her home and her office, a base from which she championed sustainable practices and worked tirelessly to foster a harmonious coexistence between the villagers and the incredible, sometimes dangerous, wildlife that shared their world. Sarah possessed an almost uncanny ability to observe, truly see, the nuanced dynamics of the ecosystem around her, and her empathy extended to every living creature, great or small. She understood the intricate dance of survival played out daily on this unforgiving stage, and her heart ached to protect it all. The current crisis, however, tested even Sarah's unwavering optimism. A severe and prolonged drought had gripped the entire region, turning once verdant plains into brittle, golden husks. Water, the very essence of life, had become a precious commodity, its scarcity threatening both human and animal populations alike. Wells had dried up, rivers dwindled to muddy trickles, and the vast open sky offered no relief. The air thrummed with a heavy silence, punctuated only by the mournful cries of distant, desperate animals. Every day brought new challenges, new stories of hardship. The villagers rationed their meager supplies, their faces etched with worry, while visible signs of distress among the wildlife became increasingly common. Animals, weakened and disoriented, ventured closer to human settlements in their desperate search for even a drop of water, creating a perilous tension in an already fragile environment. Sarah felt the weight of it all, a constant, gnawing concern for the future of this land and its inhabitants. She knew that without intervention, without some extraordinary measure, the consequences would be dire for everyone. The question wasn't if things would get worse, but how much worse, and what could possibly be done to avert the inevitable tragedy unfolding before her eyes. This is a story about compassion, resilience, and the extraordinary bonds that can form when different worlds collide in moments of extreme vulnerability. It's a tale that reminds us of the profound interconnectedness of all life and the ripple effect of a single act of kindness. To follow this remarkable journey and discover how one woman's empathy changed the course of fate for a magnificent creature and her family, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. There are many more compelling stories of human and animal connection waiting to be shared. The brutal grip of the drought tightened its hold across the land, transforming once verdant plains into a mosaic of cracked earth and skeletal acacia trees. Every sunrise brought with it a renewed sense of desperation, a heavy cloak draped over the parched landscape. The local villagers, whose lives were intrinsically linked to the rhythms of nature, felt the strain acutely. Their wells were receding, their crops wilting, and the vibrant hum of daily life was replaced by a somber quiet, punctuated only by the mournful lowing of cattle searching for non-existent pasture. The suffering was widespread and indiscriminate, touching every living creature in this corner of Africa. As the natural water sources dried up, a new and unsettling pattern emerged. Animals, driven by an instinct far more primal than fear, began to venture closer to human settlements. Elephants, usually distant and majestic, were seen nervously approaching the outskirts, their trunks sniffing the air for any trace of moisture. Antelopes, once skittish and wild, now gathered in desperate huddles near the last dwindling riverbeds, too weak to flee at the first sign of human presence. And then there were the predators. Lions, their roars now hoarse and infrequent, stalked the periphery, their gaunt frames a stark reminder of the famine's reach. Leopards, elusive by nature, shed their inherent caution, their desperate thirst overriding centuries of instinct. Sarah, ever the keen observer, watched this unfolding tragedy with a heavy heart. Her primary focus had always been conservation, protecting these magnificent creatures within their natural habitats. But now, the immediate crisis shifted her priorities. She organized the small community around her, initiating stringent water conservation measures. Every drop was precious, every usage carefully considered. She taught the villagers simple techniques for greywater recycling, demonstrating how to collect condensation, and even sharing the limited supply she had personally for her research camp. Her empathy wasn't limited to humans. She understood that the fate of the animals was intertwined with theirs. It was during one of her solitary patrols, meticulously documenting the diminishing water points, that she first noticed him. Near a particularly ancient baobab tree, whose gnarled roots tapped into a deeply hidden, almost mythical water spring, a leopard lay motionless in the meager shade. Its ribs were starkly visible beneath its once lustrous coat, its breathing shallow and labored. This was the village's last reliable water source, a mere puddle clinging to existence, and the leopard had chosen it out of sheer desperation. Its eyes, usually sharp and penetrating, were dulled by thirst and exhaustion. Its powerful frame, built for stealth and deadly efficiency, was now a picture of abject vulnerability. Sarah knew this particular individual. She had seen its distinctive rosette patterns in previous camera trap footage, a magnificent male she had informally named Quito, meaning jewel in a local dialect. Now the jewel was tarnished, dulled by the harsh reality of the drought. Her heart ached for him. She watched from a safe distance, her binoculars pressed to her eyes, observing his every tremor, every weak attempt to rise. However, her compassion for Quito was not universally shared. The community, while understanding the broader picture of interconnectedness, lived with the very real and present danger of these magnificent but wild creatures. Children played on the edges of the village, and livestock represented their entire livelihood. A desperate predator was a dangerous predator, and the elders expressed their growing unease. "The wild animals are coming too close, Sarah," one elder, Mama Asha, had warned her just days before. her voice laced with concern. They are hungry, they are thirsty. They do not know friend from foe when they are suffering so. This sentiment was echoed by others, a gnawing fear that permeated the air. Sarah understood their apprehension, the tension between their survival instincts and her fervent belief in protecting all life. It was a delicate balance, one she constantly navigated, seeking ways to bridge the gap between human necessity and wildlife preservation in these increasingly dire times. The drought was not just a scarcity of water, it was a scarcity of peace, a catalyst for conflict between man and beast, and a profound test of compassion. The relentless sun beat down, turning the already cracked earth into an unyielding baked canvas. Sarah, meticulously cataloging samples of desiccated flora, felt the air hum with desperation. The village was quieter than usual, a hushed testament to the prevailing fear and exhaustion. Then, a shadow detached itself from the shimmering heat haze on the horizon. It moved with a slow, deliberate cadence, each step a visible effort. It was the leopard, undeniably. Its ribs were stark against its fur, a ghostly silhouette of its former power. Instead of its usual swift, predatory grace, it stumbled, weaving slightly, its head held low. Panic, a cold, sharp knot, tightened in Sarah's stomach, but it was quickly overshadowed by a wave of profound pity. This was not the dangerous predator the villagers spoke of, prowling for livestock or unwary humans. This was a creature teetering on the precipice of oblivion, a victim of circumstance, just like so many others in this unforgiving drought. It approached her temporary camp, a small canvas tent nestled near the last remaining trickles of water, with an almost agonizing slowness. Its eyes, usually sharp and calculating, were glazed over, dull with thirst and weariness. It did not seem to see her, or perhaps it saw only the promise of salvation. The villagers' warnings echoed in her mind, the inherent danger, the unpredictable nature of wild animals, especially when cornered or suffering. But looking at the magnificent beast, now reduced to a shadow of its former self, Sarah saw no aggression, only an overwhelming primal need. Its panting was shallow, rasping, and she could almost feel the fire in its throat. Every instinct screamed at her to retreat, to secure herself, but another, deeper instinct, one born of empathy and her lifelong commitment to these creatures, urged her forward. Slowly, carefully, she moved towards her water supply. She filled a shallow, sturdy metal bowl, the kind used for feeding dogs, with clean, filtered water. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the immense weight of the moment. This small act felt monumental. Placing the bowl gently on the dry earth, about 20 feet from her tent, and a safe distance from the leopard's current trajectory, she then backed away, slowly, deliberately, her eyes never leaving the animal. She retreated into the relative safety of her tent's entrance, watching, holding her breath. The leopard stopped. Its head lifted slightly, nostrils flaring, scenting the air. It saw the bowl, a glint of metal against the dull earth. For a long, agonizing moment, it simply stood there, an embodiment of hesitation and suspicion. Its magnificent tail twitched once, a faint tremor of its ingrained caution. Then, the overwhelming thirst won. It took a tentative step, then another, its movements still faltering. Finally, it reached the bowl. Lowering its head, it began to drink long, deep gulps that seemed to send shudders of relief through its emaciated frame. The sound of the lapping water was the loudest thing in the desolate landscape. Sarah watched, tears stinging her eyes. As the leopard drank, it paused, lifting its head slightly. Its gaze, momentarily clearer, met hers. There was no growl, no snarl, no overt threat, just a moment of quiet, profound connection, a silent acknowledgement, an exchange of understanding between predator and protector, a deep, ancient bond forged in the crucible of shared suffering. It drank a little more, then, seemingly revived by the life-giving liquid, turned and vanished back into the shimmering heat, leaving behind only the impression of its heavy paws in the dust and a lingering sense of awe in Sarah's heart. The leopard was gone, melting into the vast, unforgiving landscape as quickly as it had appeared. Sarah remained at her tent entrance, the empty metal bowl a silent testament to the extraordinary encounter. The sound of its lapping water still echoed in her ears, a resonant memory of a primal thirst quenched. Though the magnificent creature had vanished, its image remained seared into her mind. The gaunt frame, the desperate eyes, and that fleeting moment of direct, unspoken communication. She continued her daily work, meticulously recording wildlife movements, monitoring water sources, and collaborating with local communities on conservation strategies. But her heart held a new, quiet hope. The memory of the leopard, that brief connection, stayed with her like a compass pointing towards a deeper understanding of the wild. It was a reminder that even in the face of immense suffering, compassion could bridge the most formidable divides. However, her actions did not go unnoticed, nor were they universally praised. Word, as it always did in these close-knit communities, spread quickly. A few villagers, particularly the elders who remembered harsher times and more frequent conflicts with wildlife, voiced their concerns openly. They argued that feeding or watering wild animals, especially predators, was a dangerous precedent. It could encourage them to approach human settlements more often, potentially leading to tragic confrontations, particularly with livestock or even children. Their fears were rooted in generations of experience, a hard-won wisdom about coexistence with a perilous natural world. Sarah listened patiently, understanding their apprehension, knowing that their survival often depended on maintaining a clear boundary between human and wild. She explained her rationale, emphasizing the leopard's extreme distress and the unique circumstances of the drought. But she knew that logic alone could not always soothe deep-seated anxieties. Yet, amidst the criticism, there were also murmurs of quiet respect. Some of the younger villagers, who had grown up seeing Sarah's tireless dedication to the land and its creatures, looked at her with a newfound admiration. They had witnessed her courage, her unflinching commitment to saving a life, even a predatory one, when it was at its most vulnerable. They saw not a reckless act, but a profound expression of empathy, a rare and powerful force in a world often defined by scarcity and self-preservation. These silent supporters, though fewer in number, offered her knowing glances and small gestures of solidarity, their unspoken approval a balm to her spirit. They understood, perhaps instinctively, that caring for one part of the ecosystem ultimately benefited all. The drought, however, proved relentless. Its grip tightened further as the weeks turned into months. The sun continued to beat down with an unyielding intensity, baking the earth into an even harder, cracked surface. Wells dried up completely, and the rivers, once flowing arteries of life, became dusty beds of rock and sand. The challenges escalated for everyone, for the villagers struggling to feed their families and water their dwindling herds, and for the wildlife desperately clinging to existence. Sarah threw herself into finding more sustainable, long-term solutions to the water scarcity. She collaborated with experts on drilling deeper boreholes, experimented with rainwater harvesting techniques, and worked with the community to restore degraded land, hoping to improve its capacity to retain moisture when the rains eventually returned. Every day was a battle against the elements, a constant struggle for survival. The memory of the leopard, a solitary act of compassion in a sea of despair, became a quiet source of strength for Sarah. It reinforced her belief that even the smallest gesture could have ripple effects, that hope was not lost even in the direst circumstances. She knew that protecting this land meant protecting all its inhabitants, human and animal alike. Her focus remained steadfast, not just to survive the current crisis, but to build a more resilient future where such extreme suffering might be mitigated, where the balance between human needs and wildlife conservation could be found. The empty metal bowl, now cleaned and put away, served as a constant unspoken reminder of the profound debt she felt towards the wild world, and the enduring power of a shared moment of desperate need and unexpected kindness. The drought persisted, testing everyone's limits, but Sarah pressed on, driven by the lingering hope that had been born from that remarkable encounter. Months subsequently dissolved into the relentless march of time, each day a slow, arduous crawl that gradually but assuredly chipped away at the drought's iron grip. What had seemed an eternal desolation slowly began to recede, yielding to subtle shifts in the unforgiving climate. The parched earth, once cracked and barren, softened almost imperceptibly with the arrival of sporadic, hesitant showers. These initial sprinkles were mere promises, not solutions, yet they were enough to signal a change, a potential turning point. Then, with a sudden dramatic flourish typical of the African continent, the heavens truly opened. Rains, heavy and restorative, poured down for days, transforming the landscape with astonishing speed. The drought, that devastating, life-sapping force, finally broke. It relinquished its hold, retreating like a defeated foe, leaving behind a world gasping for breath, but now, finally, receiving it in abundance. The land, which had endured so much, began its arduous journey of recovery. Tiny shoots of green, vibrant and defiant, pushed through the dust-caked soil. Rivers, previously reduced to muddy trickles or altogether dry beds, swelled and rushed with renewed vigor, carving paths through the rejuvenated terrain. Life, tenacious and resilient, reasserted itself with an almost ferocious energy. The stark, skeletal trees that had stood as monuments to despair now budded with fresh leaves, their branches swaying gently in the clean, rain-scented air. A new season bloomed, an explosion of verdant life that painted the landscape in shades of green Sarah had almost forgotten. The air hummed with activity. Insects buzzed, birds sang their joyous songs, and the distant calls of larger animals echoed across the plains. The region became lush once more, a vibrant tapestry of life, attracting an increasing array of wildlife that had either migrated to more hospitable areas or had simply been lying low, waiting for this very moment. Grazers returned in droves, their numbers slowly replenishing, followed inevitably by the predators who hunted them. It was a cycle as old as time, starkly beautiful in its natural order. Through all this transformation, Sarah remained steadfast in her dedication. Her days were a demanding blend of research and community outreach, a continuous effort to foster sustainable practices and reinforce the delicate balance between human and animal coexistence. She monitored the returning species, documenting their numbers and movements, a meticulous record of the land's revival. Her focus was on understanding the long-term ecological impacts of the drought and implementing strategies to mitigate future crises. She worked tirelessly with the local communities, sharing knowledge, promoting water conservation techniques, and discussing ways to coexist peacefully with the wildlife that was now reclaiming its former territories. Amidst her purposeful routine, Sarah would occasionally encounter subtle clues, fleeting moments that pricked at her memory. She would spot the distinctive rosette-patterned footprints of a leopard, unusually large, she noted, near a waterhole she was surveying, or catch a momentary flash of tawny fur disappearing into the thick undergrowth. There were times, too, when she sensed a presence, a watchful gaze from the shadows, and upon turning, would swear she saw the unmistakable silhouette of a leopard, often observing her with a peculiar, almost placid calm before melting away. These were not the skittish, easily spooked leopards she was accustomed to. There was something different, an almost familiar stillness about them. These unexplained sightings, these fleeting glimpses of a leopard that seemed to possess an unusual composure in her proximity, began to spark a faint, persistent memory. It was an elusive echo of that desperate, emaciated creature she had encountered months ago, a fragile connection from a time of intense suffering. Could it be? She dismissed the thought as fanciful, a hopeful projection born of her deep empathy. Yet, the question lingered, a quiet, persistent hum beneath the surface of her conscious thoughts. The possibility, however remote, that the leopard she had helped had somehow survived and was now, subtly, invisibly, returning to her world, was a notion too profound to fully ignore. It woven a thread of quiet anticipation through her days, a subconscious hope that perhaps, just perhaps, she might once again cross paths with that extraordinary animal. The land had healed, and with it, perhaps, so too had the creature she had offered a moment of grace. Years later, the memory of that silent exchange still resonated deeply within Sarah. The drought had long since ceded its tyrannical grip, replaced by the vibrant greens of a replenished landscape, a testament to nature's enduring power of recovery. Life in the village had found its rhythm again, the daily struggles of scarcity replaced by the steady hum of growth and restoration. Sarah continued her dedicated work, constantly monitoring the wildlife, engaging with the community, and tirelessly advocating for sustainable practices. She had spent countless hours establishing a series of discreet, remote waterholes across the territory, carefully designed to collect rainwater and provide vital hydration points for the returning animal populations, especially during the dry seasons. These were critical infrastructure, ensuring that no creature would again suffer the agonizing thirst she had witnessed during the Great Drought. One crisp morning, as the sun painted the sky with hues of orange and gold, Sarah embarked on her usual rounds, checking the status of one of these newly established waterholes. It was nestled deep within a rocky outcrop, far from human settlements, a tranquil haven where birds sang and the occasional antelope grazed. As she approached, her experienced eye caught a flicker of movement near the water's edge. Her heart gave an involuntary lurch, a mix of excitement and the familiar caution that always accompanied an encounter with large predators. There, lapping at the cool, clear water, was a leopard. But this was no ordinary sighting. There was something profoundly familiar about its posture, the way its powerful shoulders flexed, the distinct pattern of rosettes adorning its flank. A wave of recognition, startling in its intensity, washed over her. It was unmistakable. The specific configuration of dark spots above its left eye, the subtle scar just behind its ear, details she had etched into her memory during that desperate encounter years ago, confirmed it. This was her leopard. Her breath hitched in her throat as she realized the true extent of the miracle unfolding before her. The leopard was not alone. Playing playfully at its side, tumbling over each other with boundless energy, were two tiny cubs. They were a vision of health and vitality, their coats a rich, deep gold, their movements agile and full of youthful exuberance. They pounced on each other, chasing imaginary prey, occasionally nudging their mother for attention, completely oblivious to the human presence observing them from a respectful distance. The sight was breathtaking, a powerful affirmation of life's tenacity and the complete turnaround from the emaciated, despairing creature she had once encountered. The adult leopard, sensing her presence, lifted its head. Its eyes, now clear and bright, locked onto Sarah's. There was no fear, no aggressive snarl, no sudden flight. Just a deep, unwavering gaze that seemed to pierce through the years, acknowledging the passage of time and the profound connection forged in a moment of shared vulnerability. It was a look of quiet recognition, an understanding that transcended species. In that silent exchange, Sarah felt a surge of profound emotion. This magnificent creature, now a mother, responsible for these two healthy, thriving lives, was the very leopard she had offered that small, life-saving bowl of water to so long ago. The act of compassion had not been forgotten. It had, in effect, contributed to this very moment, to the continuation of this small, vital lineage. The circle of life, nourished by a single act of kindness, had not only sustained itself, but had flourished, bringing forth new generations into the wild. Sarah felt an overwhelming wave of emotion wash over her, a sensation so potent it brought tears to her eyes. The sheer improbability of this moment, the poetic justice of it all, struck her to her core. This magnificent mother, now so vibrant and regal, was undeniably the gaunt, desperate creature whose life had hung by a thread, alleviated only by a small, trembling bowl of water offered by her own hand years ago. The realization created a powerful, almost spiritual resonance within her, a profound understanding that a simple act of compassion, extended without expectation, had not only saved a life but had blossomed into new life, fostering an entire new generation. It was a full circle, a testament to the enduring ripple effect of kindness, proving that even the most fleeting gesture could possess immeasurable power. Every instinct urged her to approach, to somehow convey the depth of her joy and understanding, but she held back, respecting the wildness of the moment and the delicate balance of their encounter. She remained perfectly still, a silent observer to a miracle. The leopard, now completely at ease, settled onto her haunches, her gaze occasionally drifting back to Sarah, a gentle, almost benevolent acknowledgement in her golden eyes. The cubs, meanwhile, were a whirlwind of innocent energy. They tumbled over each other, mock-stalking invisible prey, their tiny roars more like playful chirps. One cub, bolder than its sibling, batted playfully at its mother's tail, only to be scooped up gently by the scruff of its neck and nudged closer. They drank from the waterhole, their small, pink tongues lapping eagerly, then frolicked in the shallow edges, their movements mirroring the boundless joy of burgeoning life. Sarah watched, mesmerized, as the family dynamic unfolded before her. The protective mother, ever vigilant but also incredibly patient, and the rambunctious, curious offspring exploring their world. It was a snapshot of pure, unadulterated nature, a scene that confirmed every belief she held about the intrinsic value of every creature and the absolute necessity of protecting their fragile existence. This leopard, once a symbol of the drought's devastating cruelty, now embodied resilience, motherhood, and the regenerative power of nature itself. The air around them was thick with a palpable peace, broken only by the chirping of insects and the soft lapping of water. The mother leopard, rather than exhibiting any territorial aggression, seemed to project a serene acceptance of Sarah's presence. It was as if, in that shared moment of vulnerability during the drought, an unspoken pact had been formed, a bond forged not through domestication, but through mutual respect and a profound, life-altering exchange. She seemed to guard her precious family not just from unseen dangers, but from the harsh memories of a past struggle, yet remained utterly tranquil in Sarah's vicinity. Unbeknownst to Sarah, a small group of local villagers, on their way to check on their own water supply points further down the trail, had approached cautiously, drawn by the unusual stillness and the presence of the parked vehicle. They froze, peering through the dense foliage, their eyes widening in disbelief at the sight before them. They saw Sarah, standing calmly, not fleeing, not even seemingly afraid, just watching. And there, basking in the sun, utterly unperturbed by her presence, was a mother leopard with her 2 healthy cubs. Whispers rippled through the group, hushed tones of awe and astonishment. These were the same villagers who, years ago, had warned Sarah against her foolish compassion, who had feared that inviting predators closer would only bring disaster. Now, confronted with this extraordinary tableau, their preconceived notions began to crack. The image of the powerful, yet composed leopard, seemingly at peace with the human who had once offered it succor, slowly began to shift their perspectives, planting the seeds of a new understanding about the complex, often unseen connections that bound their world together. The old fears and prejudices, once so firmly entrenched, started to give way to a dawning realization of something far more profound. The sight solidified Sarah's deepest convictions, an undeniable testament to the profound interconnectedness of all life on Earth. It was a powerful, living embodiment of how even the smallest act of kindness could ripple outwards, shaping destinies and fostering unexpected renewals. The leopard, once on the brink of death, now stood before her, a symbol of resilience surrounded by the vibrant, playful embodiments of future generations. Her cubs, sleek and robust, were a living testament to the enduring power of compassion and the wild's remarkable ability to reclaim and regenerate. They frolicked, completely unaware of the historical weight of their mother's survival, their very existence a direct consequence of a moment of shared vulnerability and human empathy. Sarah watched, tears blurring her vision, as the cubs playfully nipped at their mother's tail, then bounded off to investigate a rustling bush. The adult leopard, regal and watchful, never broke eye contact with Sarah for long. It was as if she understood the unspoken gratitude, the silent promise of connection that bound them. This wasn't merely survival, it was thriving. The once parched landscape, now vibrant and green, mirrored the transformation she witnessed in the leopard family. The cycle had not just continued, it had been nurtured, given a chance to flourish against overwhelming odds. The future of this small, magnificent lineage was now secure, their sleek coats gleaming under the African sun, their playful growls echoing in the quiet morning air. For Sarah, this wasn't just a heartwarming encounter. It was a profound vindication of her life's work, a powerful affirmation that her efforts, and those of countless others dedicated to conservation, truly mattered. The struggle against drought, against dwindling resources, against human-wildlife conflict, often felt immense and overwhelming. Yet, here was undeniable proof that compassion could bridge the divide, that understanding could overcome fear, and that a single act of generosity could echo through time, yielding such extraordinary wonders. The memory of that desperate, emaciated leopard, its ribs stark against its fur, slowly dissolving as she watched these healthy, vibrant creatures. She reflected on the simple bowl of water, offered years ago in a moment of instinctual empathy. It had been a small gesture, almost insignificant in the face of such widespread suffering, yet its impact was monumental. That act had not only saved a life, but, through that life, had indirectly fostered new ones. It underscored the deep, often unseen bonds that existed between humans and nature, a delicate tapestry woven with threads of mutual respect and understanding. The world, in its vastness and complexity, often presented humanity with stark choices. In moments like these, the path forward became unequivocally clear. Compassion, protection, and interconnectedness were not just ideals, but essential elements for survival, for both humanity and the wild. As the sun climbed higher, casting longer shadows, the leopard finally broke its gaze, turning to lead her cubs deeper into the protective embrace of the bush. They moved with a silent grace, disappearing as quickly as they had appeared, leaving Sarah alone with the lingering warmth of the sun and the indelible imprint of their presence. The experience left her with an unshakable sense of purpose, a renewed vigor for her mission. It was a story she knew she would carry with her, a potent reminder that every action, no matter how small, possessed the potential for transformative change. The wild heart of Africa, with all its struggles and triumphs, continued to beat, sustained by these silent pacts between species, these unexpected moments of grace. If this incredible story of resilience, compassion, and the enduring power of nature moved you, we encourage you to like this video, share it with others who appreciate the majesty of the wild, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue to bring you more inspiring tales of wildlife conservation and the remarkable connections that bind us all. Stay with us for our next video, where we delve into another extraordinary narrative of courage and coexistence. Remember, compassion can truly ripple through time and yield unexpected wonders, proving that a single act of kindness can indeed change the world, one life at a time.